Hey, Bill.
Hi, Efren. How are you?
I'm well. How you doing?
I can't complain, sir.
Good, good. Hey, President Pro Tem.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to everyone. Hey, Councilor Dice. Start coming in. We'll get ready to start. Make sure all the councilors are here also. Everyone else. All right. So good evening to everyone. We're going to begin this Finance Committee meeting this evening. Today is January 4th, 2021, the new year. And let me just read some of the logistics first, and then we'll get started and just welcome everyone. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org/live-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form on the city website at least 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start time of the meeting. Please include your address in your written public comment submission. Once again, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's Finance Committee meeting. I want to welcome all the councilors. Hopefully everyone is here. So far, I've seen several of you guys with your cameras on. So I think we have maybe 4 or 5 here so far. Okay, I also want to welcome Bill Giesing of the Registrar's Office this evening. And also welcome the City Clerk Ayala. And
I'm here as well, Mr. President. This is Rob Piro, but I'm on the call. I'm trying to get in the other way.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I was just going to ask about, okay, and thank you, Mr. Pearl. Thank you, Rob, also for joining us on the call. Greatly appreciated. So tonight, I'm going to bring this meeting to order, and there is no public comment, so we'll get right started. I had Jenny Starts, our assistant administrator, email the registrar's office because we wanted to have sort of like a discussion about, you know, the prior election with the registrar's office to debrief a little bit about how, you know, how it went, what went well, what things we can change to improve. So that's why this meeting is established, just for us to make sure that, you know, what we're doing everything possible to make sure that elections are being run properly and correctly, and everything's being done for our residents to be able to have that access to voting. And I know that we've done that before in the past, but I don't think we never had a time where we can, you know, really discuss and see if we can do some improvements on it. So what I'll do is I'm going to allow the registrar's office just to talk briefly about the prior election, and then after that I'm going to open it up to the councilors if they have any questions. Okay, so this is just a discussion, a meeting we're going to be having, and just to see what are the things that we can do to improve on our elections. So go ahead, Mr. Bill Giesing, the floor is yours.
Okay. Now, first of all, I mean, comparing this election to any other election is not even going to be close. The virus has completely thrown everything out of whack on this. There were so many factors that were involved in this, whether it was workers all the way up to the day before that were dropping out because of contact and having a quarantine. Basically, in each polling place, I believe we had maybe 3 experienced workers in the polling places. You know, so we were scrambling to keep people coming. Fortunately, the Secretary of State had a website plus phone numbers for them, the other people who wanted to volunteer to help out and give us phone calls, which they did. And we were almost overwhelmed, which was great because a lot of times we had somebody set up to work for us, and then they ended up dropping out because they had been exposed. So that was some of the things we were done there. But the ones that worked, I cannot say enough about the people that work those polling places that did a phenomenal job under some very difficult circumstances everywhere, whether it was election day registration, which was a new location for us, which was totally foreign. We didn't have any computer hookup, no phone hookup, no way. We had to learn how to try to set up the polling place in such a way as to try to minimize as much as possible the social distancing and exposure to people. So they were constantly going on with things happening at that time period. So there were a lot of impediments to making this a smooth election just before we get started. I can't tell you how many Zoom calls we were on with the Secretary of State. There were a lot of confusion going on with a lot of things that they were saying at the time. The statutes were being changed from the primary to the election. The statutes that were done in the primary were not necessarily carried over to the general election. So that was confusing enough to all of us at the same time. The absentee ballot counting was fortunate that they allowed us to do it the day before. Rob will get into some of this too also, that we were one of the few states that, few towns that did that in the state, believe it or not. And it worked out to be very fortuitous for us because we got us to be able to count the ballots a lot quicker. The other, some other items that were there, the polling places having to be set up in such a way as to promote the social distancing and making sure disinfecting and things of that nature was also another factor. One of the things that accounted for the lines being longer, appearing to be a lot longer than what they really were. I mean, during a presidential, it's not unusual in the morning from 5 a.m. till 9 a.m. at least to have long lines on election day in a presidential. I've been doing this for 15 years. It's not something we haven't had experience before. The thing that happened on this was when you were spreading the people out 6 feet apart, then the lines were longer in that respect because of what we were doing for trying to separate the people. And there were fights almost in those lines with people who were not happy with somebody who was a little bit too close to them. We had a couple of times we had to go and make sure that we try to keep the people calm out there. So there were things of that. The lines were there, they were long. We expected them to be long. But after 9 o'clock, things kind of just became steadier, and there were still lines. We were always going to have lines at that point, but we had split the books up enough that there was a problem in one district where it seemed like that there were more people that were coming in for one group that we had separated the books, and nobody come in for the other one. So what we did is we took the backup book and we opened that up so we could start moving people in that line that was starting to get too long, and move them over to being checked off in the book so that they would be able to move the line faster until more people came in for that section. So we, as time goes on, over the years, we have learned to make adjustments when something is going on, such as that. It's not an unusual thing for things to happen for us to react to. This was an unusual election over and above board of what we usually went through. There's legislation coming down the pike, and if you read the day today, you'll probably get a pretty good idea of what's coming. There are going to be changes to the absentee ballot. It's probably going to pass. I'm on the legislative committee for the Registrar of Voters Association of Connecticut, and we've already had our meeting and know that the legislation is going to pass, and especially for the no excuse absentee ballot, which is already passed before by a majority, gets passed by a majority again, then goes to the voter. The newest one will be the early voting, which is something new. And those are the two major ones. There's more coming. There's more things having to do with this election because there were things that they saw that they want to do to make this thing different than what it used to be. So these are going to be changes that are going to affect our town in respect to maybe cost factors that are going to be involved, because the state historically has the tendency to put something or get a grant for it, put it and use it, and then about within 1 or 2 years, what happens, we end up with having to foot the bill for the maintenance and then the additional costs that are involved in it. So these are other things that are going on with that. So I'm just briefly going through some of these things. There were so many things that the statutes require that we had to get done. And like I say, with the statutes changing at times, then it became a huge impediment to us to being able to sometimes function, not even going along with the certifying, pre-certification of the machines, the setting up the polling place, all these different things that were going on at that time, plus the number of phone calls and stuff we had per day were over 50 a day. We had done in the time period from September 1st until November 3rd, we had done 21,056 total transactions on the computer for voter registrations on top of all this, and then still try to get the equipment and things ready at the same time. And we also had a poll book crashed the day before the election. And working with the vendor, I was able to make some adjustments so that we kept the busy polling places up that still had 2 computers, and we kept a smaller voting district with 1 and with plenty of backup if we needed it. These are just a few things. Rob can probably now expound on some things I've made mention now. I'll turn it over to him.
Do you want me to speak, Mr. President?
Yes, sir. No, yes. Go ahead and speak. Yep.
Well, I think, many of the things that Mr. Giesing had said is accurate. We basically had 4 elections in a calendar year. Every year, the registrar of voters gets an election calendar, and you could, as a citizen, you can go on and look. One was released recently by the Secretary of State, and the election calendar for 2020 was ever changing. The primary was scheduled, the Connecticut presidential primary was scheduled for April 28th. Then it was rescheduled for June 2nd. Then it was rescheduled for August 11th. All throughout that time, we are obviously planning for an election as well as hiring individuals for this process, as well as being on calls with the Secretary of State's office. We at some point had to also submit a safe polls plan, which the city received, I believe, $11,000 to $14,000 of revenue from the state, because all the towns were asked to provide a safe polls plan for the primaries as well as the general election. As this was going on, the November date didn't change, but as this was going on, we have the primary in August. We have a huge turnout in terms of absentee balloting. We have ballot boxes that are provided to us, which we now have, and I believe it's going to be able to be used because they were purchased with federal funds into coming elections. So that is something I'm sure that any legislation will work into, that people will have another way of submitting their ballot in the future. But it was very difficult when City Hall was closed, and we had to meet voters at the door sometimes, because in the November cycle, September, August, people who were new to the state could not register online because they had out-of-state licenses. So that created a problem. And then for people who did not necessarily have access to the internet, they wanted to provide their registrations in person, and there was a lot of anxiety. I think if you ask everybody across parties, anxiety was high. It probably hasn't still come down a little, but it was high. And so certainly that translated to more calls to our office, translated to a lot of people hearing news from other states. Remember, there is nothing in the Constitution that talks to about one election. We have 50 different elections. So when people hear information in the news, they might be hearing it in the national news, which relates to another state. So we were running up against that with a lot of calls that we had to constantly talk to people about absentee ballot. If they sent in their absentee ballot, did they have to match their signature of when they signed their card? No, they did not. But I don't know how many times we had to reassure people that was not the case in Connecticut. So again, anxiety was high. You know, the first election is in August. The second election occurs right after in terms of a recount. We had to go through a recount for the Republican side of the primary. And that took time, as well as having individuals inside City Hall. Remember, all while this is going on, there's construction going on at City Hall, which I have to say the mayor did a great job of working with us and getting things done. Then you fast forward to the September, October timeframe, and the Secretary of State is still rolling out guidelines. There's not a lot of information relative to how this is going to work in terms of the absentee balloting process, but we still have to order ballots, right? So some of this is being developed on the fly. Not a criticism, but what was being faced with was a lot of the things that went on with the absentee balloting, through no fault of the city clerks throughout the state, that the mailing house sent these absentee ballot request forms out to people, and it wasn't done in a timely manner, and some of these got caught up in the mail, and they changed that. Thank God for the November cycle. So we also at this time, prior to maybe August, we understood through the construction project at the high school, we had to change the polling location. Even though it was on the campus, we had to then change the building, and that required us to make notification to 7,000 voters in the first district. So we had to send out 7,000 postcards informing the district voters in the first district that their polling location was going to be changed, all of it, that it was in the same, pretty much in the same complex. So that generates a document out to the voter, calls to the city hall. It also generates returns, which we're still dealing with, because a lot of people in New London tend to move and their addresses change, and those things don't catch up until usually there's an election and they go in to vote. Again, that's just giving background on how the process can change and that you might not be aware of from a voting perspective. The other thing that we had to deal with was City Hall was not accessible to the public, and trying to give voter registration cards, making sure people could get registered so that they can then get an absentee ballot, because in the November cycle, I believe it was September, and it was like the first week of September, the Secretary of State sent out all absentee ballot request forms to people who were registered as of the first week of September. So if you got registered after that date, every time a person got registered, then we would have to send out an absentee ballot request form with their registration as well, which people have anxiety over whether or not we get there in time based upon what they were hearing about the postal issues. So again, a lot of anxiety. Then we had a meeting with the mayor all throughout this election timeframe, and he was very good about helping, as well as trying to make our job easier. But we had to deal with not allowing access to City Hall. For the EDR, we had to set up basically another polling site in the lobby of City Hall, and had to put up guidelines which would allow people the right to vote, but in a safe way. And then we had to set up a process for counting those absentee ballots, having the workers tested prior to them coming in this City Hall twice. We were one, I think, of a very few towns and cities in the state of Connecticut which opted to count or start the process of the counting, meaning opening the inner and the outer envelopes the day prior to election day, which allowed for a better time frame in terms of getting the results to the public, to the people who are running. If we had not done that, you would have probably seen a delay in finding out some of the results. That was big. One of the things that we've utilized, and I think Bill is, I have to hand it to Bill, he's been doing this a lot more than me, is getting electronic poll books. The electronic poll books are huge, not only for the voter, but also for the parties to get people out to vote. You have the ability to go into our at the polls minute for minute to find out who is voting and to push people to get out to vote, to let them know it's election day. That is something that a lot of communities don't have. They still have the cross-off sheets. And Bill had mentioned earlier, when somebody comes in to vote, if there are long lines, what we utilize when we had long lines is we utilize voter checkoff with the paper. And then when the lines had calmed down, we had then went in and checked them off in the voter checklist, the poll books, electronic poll books. Those poll books, remember, Bill had mentioned earlier, we had maybe 3 at tops that were people who had veteran people who've done this. So people, and we found that in some instances, on the poll books, people can get a little confused, and the lines can get people a little anxiety and slow them up a little. But once they get a flow going, the lines move a little quicker. So there was a little of that went on, and certainly I think there were hiccups along the way, but for the most part, we serviced over 9,500 people in our community. And I think we did a very good job in the constraints that we were dealing with, an ever-changing calendar in terms of the requirements that we're supposed to meet. We had to not only count votes, but we were required to make sure the voters were safe. We had security meetings with the mayor, the police department, fire officials. We also had to, we also allowed ourselves to meet with other groups to let them know about the process and avail themselves of how they can vote, whether it be absentee. I participated in a process of, I think it was, I don't remember the organization, but we had provided voter information. And we did that throughout the course of the election. I know you have a lot of questions potentially, so I don't know that, I mean, I have a lot more information, but I don't want to belabor your facts, but I just think this was an election like no other. I've been a candidate for many elections, and I've been an election official. And certainly there is no election like this because you had a process where there's a planning process on how many ballots we're going to order. And we had to continuously monitor the absentee, how many people were voting by absentee. And twice we ordered additional ballots because our projections were, we thought more people were going to be voting by absentee based upon what they did in the primary, based upon what we were hearing. And that changed a little. And so I think the fact that the state did buy these ballot boxes that allowed for security and some safety, people utilized those. There were over 3,500 people who voted by absentee, which is unheard of in terms of, I don't know of any number that I could see going back elections that have ever come to that amount. And we had, while the mayor didn't want people coming into City Hall and monitoring the process, he had his IT people sync up the new system that you have in city council chambers. So people had the ability to watch what was going on, to view the counting of these ballots so that people could feel comfortable with what was going on in that room.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Also, Bill, I don't know if Shannon, did you want to add anything to the discussion?
No, I just think that,
Okay.
just to sum it up, Rob and I have been doing this, I think, 5 years, Bill, many more, and nothing about not just the primary and the presidential, but nothing about this whole election season was as we've ever had before, just between PPE, social distancing, City Hall being closed, many different, we had many meetings with the Secretary of State. For a while in February, we were having them once a week, I believe, with her team. And we would learn new things every single week about how we had to run the election. And a lot of things changed within that time as well, both with the registrar's office and the city clerk's office. And, you know, just one other part, city clerk's office, generally, this is kind of a small part of their workflow. Absentee ballots are not that high. This year, it was a much, much bigger and more time-consuming part of their job, which required us to kind of coordinate with them a lot more as well for this election. So it was really a partnership between two offices, also not just one. And I think that was different. And we've just never, although we've had absentee balloting before, we've never had this situation where people were returning absentee ballots to a ballot box. And that, I think the voters had a lot of concerns about that. And it was harder for them to, we refocused a lot in how we did our jobs also because City Hall was closed. So you have a lot of people typically coming into the office and registering. And like Bill said, the phone calls were just unbelievable, but also people concerned that they didn't want to necessarily visit City Hall, but they were unclear, especially if they didn't have a driver's license and had trouble registering online, how to do that. So there was a lot of running up and down the stairs, you know, to the door and having people stand outside while they registered us. And thank goodness the mayor, as it got closer, you know, set up that downstairs lobby so it was a little bit easier. But I would just say there was absolutely nothing about this election at all that ran as we've run it in the past. So we learned a lot of things. I think there are some things that we can adopt permanently as we move forward, as we do with every election. But overall, yeah, Rob went through a litany. I missed some of Bill's, but we just had a lot of readjusting in this election because of COVID and because we had recounts and audits. Adds a lot. But
Okay.
thanks for the opportunity to talk.
You're welcome. Yep, this is President Dominguez. And I just to remind you, I'm sorry, guys, that every time we speak, we're supposed to say our name. So my apologies, because I did not say that in the beginning, but I do appreciate each of you, Bill, Rob, and Shannon, for just coming on tonight and just sharing, you know, each of you what you said. I mean, I know that this whole thing, just, you know, elections are difficult as that is, but you throw in there the pandemic, that even makes it even was something that none of us have gone through. So it makes it even more difficult. But I appreciate the time that you have given us here tonight. And what I'm going to do is, you know what, I just had just one question, and then I'm going to give it to James, Councilor James. So I had a question about, I know that either or, it could be Rob or Bill or Shannon, whoever wants to answer this question about the electronic poll books. How many of those do we have? And did you see that? Is it something that we should get more of those? Or
Yes.
Yes. So how many
Yeah.
do we have in each poll, like in each of the polling places?
We were set up for 2 in each polling place,
Okay.
normally. What happened was this one, because one crashed the day before, and I mean, literally, we must have lost the hard drive or the motherboard or whatever. I'm computer literate enough to understand it, but I couldn't do anything to get it back. So, but normally we have 2 per, so that's 6 poll books.
Okay.
We do need to get 3 more, but plus we may have to get a 4th one because of the fact that this one crashed and I can't get it to come back, you know, and do anything to try to either reload an operating system into it or whatever it might take, or maybe even have the IT department guys, if they're so busy, I don't know if they'll be able to, but we have to do something. But we are going to want to have 3 per district on a gubernatorial and presidential, because I believe that's going to make a huge difference on how fast those lines will go. Because we then can split up a district such as the first district would had 7,379 people. We can divide that by 2, 3, and now you're talking basically checking in 2,000 people during a 14-hour day is a lot better than trying to do 6,000. I mean, 3,500 people, 3,500. So it'll make it so much faster to do that. It's just a matter of dividing the streets up in such a way that you do it evenly and try to figure out, it takes a little time to figure out the population, but you do need 3 in each polling place. And yes, it's a godsend to be able to use them. And hopefully that, we'll be able to keep doing that.
I would say though, in terms of, even if you had those 3 in this election, the spacing issues in all those schools is difficult.
Yeah.
In the entrance, coming in the entranceway of Nathan Hale, specifically Harbor, and the high school, because we were we were not at the gymnasium, we were at the science and tech. So those hallways are narrow. And while it would be great to have 3, even if we had 2, it's the narrowness in this election. It's very difficult.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Rob Perry, and also thank you, Bill Gissing. So my other question with this, okay, so we're going to need that amount. How much does one of those electric poll books, how much do they cost? What's the cost on those?
We would have to, this is Bill Gissing, we would have to look up the price on that, because I don't remember what we spent for a price on it, but I imagine it's anywhere between, for a regular it's a regular laptop.
Okay.
And we really don't want any bells and whistles or anything like that. It's basic laptop, so that we just want to make sure it's got internet connection, because we use the wireless connection in the schools to be able to, so that we can see what's going on. If your party and Rob's party are able to, go in and check to see what's going on, they can by the, almost not quite simultaneously. None of us can see it simultaneous, but within minutes, you can see who's voted. So I would say probably figure close to 300 maybe is a possibility, but it could be a little bit lower. If we get just a basic model, that's all we really need.
Okay.
So just to point out, so you're aware of it,
Go ahead, Rob.
the software that we pay for from the company, I believe, is like 3,000, right, Bill? I believe
With
the
licensing.
Yeah, but
Right.
it covers a lot of computers in one district.
Right.
So
I
did you
just
know
want
what it cost?
I just
No
wanted to
additional-
give a sense of that it's not just the books that go along. They don't provide us the actual computer.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez, and my last question will be this. So comparing like past elections, and of course, comparing to this one, I know it was difficult because of, everything each of you stated, but did you have more workers? Were you able to have more workers to help, or what was like the difference? Did you, because I know because of the testing and everything, how did that work on each of those, on the?
Can I,
Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
it's
go ahead.
Shannon Brennick.
Yeah.
That is one other thing to point out, is that it was difficult with workers also. Generally, our workers are a little bit older, some of them concerned to work during COVID. And we did have some people who were either quarantined at the last minute who could not work. Or we relied on workers who had not worked many elections because they had to be newly trained. They didn't have the experience. So it is difficult to ask people to work. You get an experienced group, and typically your older community is retired and they don't have to ask for that time off for work. So I would say that we had a little bit more difficulty this year. I think Bill and Rob will agree, with workers because of COVID, because people were concerned, especially people who were in that older age group. So we did bring on a lot of younger people who had school off. And I think that if we can continue to use them and train them and get them the experience, that'll result in a positive. But I do think, I don't know, Rob or Bill, I didn't do the final numbers of workers, if we hired more or less, or if we ended up kind of even there. I think our election day registration, we had more people than we typically would have. And also we had more workers for absentee ballot counting. So I'll let them follow that up.
Yeah, Shannon's correct about, this is Rob Piro. Shannon's correct about that. We had more workers overall, but we had more areas in which we had to, like EDR, we basically, it was almost like another polling location. It doesn't qualify as one, but we had to, based upon the area that we were utilizing, in 2016, we had 400 people come through our small office. So we utilized the lobby downstairs and hired additional workers, as well as absentees. We hired a lot of other people at the polling locations. We would wanted an additional worker here or there? Yeah, definitely. And what happened, as Bill had said and Shannon alluded to, we had people that had dropped out, people that had gotten contact tracing, at least 10 to 15 people, and maybe 8 of them or 9 of them that we were able to replace. But would we wanted 1 or 2 more at the high school, Harbor School? Sure. Nathan Hill, I think we were fine, but we just, we weren't lucky. It wasn't our day in some ways. In other ways, I think it was. I think we did the best we could. We had a hiccup at Harbor School, and once we had that hiccup, we tried to address it as best we could. And I think even the state that well.
Thank you. This is President Mingus speaking. Thank you. I'm going to hand it off to Councilor Burke, and then we'll have Councilor Dice with a question.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you to all the registrars, the city clerk, for, again, it was not an easy time to hold an election, and, it's incredibly important work that you individually and all your offices and workers do to, protect our democracy. But as Registrar Pero just alluded to, my first question, is regarding to the incident, which, made both local and statewide news outlets about the wrong ballots being given out in Harbor School. I know I've spoken to both Registrar Pero and Registrar Giesing about this individually. I'm sure we've all read the details in the paper. To the interest of time, what I'm not looking here for is we don't need to go into a summary, but what I am particularly interested in is it's my understanding, I understand how, ballots are labeled with both the municipal districts and the congressional districts, and the 2nd congressional district was how the mistake was made. But my question is specifically, whose responsibility is it to deliver the ballots to the polling locations? Is it one of the registrar's responsibility individually, or is that responsibility delegated? And if it is delegated, who was it delegated to in this election?
This is Bill Giesing. The ballots are delivered to the polling places by both registrars. We're required to have one from each party to make the delivery to the polling places. We pack them up at City Hall, and then we take the ballots individually. In a caravan type of thing, to each polling place, and then lock them up into the cabinets. Usually try to get that done generally a week before the election, and that's how it's done, and that's statutorily required, that you cannot be delivering ballots and tabulators without having a member of each party doing it together.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Registrar Giesing. So just to clarify, it was both yourself and Registrar Pero who delivered the District 3 ballots to the 2nd district.
We only delivered the one package went into the 2nd. What happens? They go into, this is Bill Giesing, they go into a bag, okay, and they're coming out of a box that was sent by LHS. Apparently, one of the boxes had a District 2 ballot. 100. There's 100 in a package. Had one left over from the order that we had made. And when we were loading up the 3rd district and all, and they were looking at the numbers and all of the congressionals and the other things, in all the other instances of things that were going on at that point, then that's when there was a mix-up of that 100 ballots. Yes, that's what happened at that point. And then the bags were sealed, and they eventually were delivered to the polling places.
If I could just expand, can I just expand on this?
By all means, go ahead. Thank you, Registrar.
Yeah, this is Rob Piro. So I think one of the issues here is that, yeah, we made a human error. And so we don't know until they're obviously open on election day and they start to go through and are rejected by the tabulator, because the markings on the bottom of the ballots are different than the tabulator will accept. The problem, one of the things I think happened in a very short time frame is we evaluated that we needed more ballots twice and ordered more ballots, so we didn't run out. And when those ballots were sent, the markings on those ballots were not done in terms of districts. There were, as Mr. Giesing had mentioned, we had found one of them to be accurate in terms of, one was in the other one, and we made a mistake. Now, the district, if on the top of the ballot in the right-hand corner, it'll say congressional district, which is District 2. And so that is what happened. And so I think what we had talked about is that in the future, we need to color code these, and that will be a printing cost that will have to be absorbed, but we won't want to have this happen again. But I think this is not, New London was not, immune to this. There were 3 other towns that went through this, unfortunately. But what we did, because we had electronic poll books, we were able to pinpoint the time frame, and because of the steps that we took in terms of how we processed them, the voter putting the ballots in, we called over 100 voters in that time frame that we had calculated the problem had happened, and we got a percentage of those voters to come back.
Thank you very much, Registrar Pero. My next question is, so I don't know the exact figure, perhaps you can know your answer, but, around 9,000 or so votes were cast in the November general election in New London this year. By my ballpark, I don't have the exact number going into election day, but that's, around more than 50, less than 60, I believe, percentage turnout, which significantly lags behind the overall state's turnout of 79.22%, and regionally is very, very low in comparison to some of our surrounding towns. East Lyme was 89%. Waterford's was in the 80s. So my question can, be rather open-ended, and we all know that, yes, we have a transient population here in New London, with people moving around from time to time. I know I always have to end up helping a friend or two, who used to vote at the high school and now they vote at Harbor School. One thing that I always come to mind is the fact that, we have, in 2009, we went from 7 polling places to 3. With the 3 polling places left over, in the 3rd district, if you look on Google Maps, from the tip of Mott Avenue, it's about a 19-minute walk to Nathan Hale School. From the tip of Laurel Drive to Harbor School is about a 32-minute walk. And from the tip of the houses in East New London on William Street to New London High School is about a 45-minute walk, according to Google Maps. And I don't think I need to remind anyone that, the average median income also follows that trend. That essentially the poorest people in our city have the hardest time getting to their polls, and the most wealthy people in our city have the easiest time getting to the polls. So that's one inference I've made on, what we can do to increase voter turnout is expanding and, creating equity in people's ability to get to a polling place by expanding polling places. So to anyone, to either Registrar Pero or Giesing who would like to respond, do you agree that an increase in polling places would help us improve voter turnout? And then also, do you have any other ideas about how, we catch up with our state and the rest of our region in, getting a higher voter turnout in the future?
This is Bill Giesing. The thing that I was part of the process when we had 7 districts, and I did that for a number of years. And I did go back through this meeting to be able to tell you this, because I'll have to go back. But the number of people that were turning out for 7 districts were identical to what we have right now that were turning out for 3 districts. There was no change after we went to the 3 districts. If you go back to November of 2016, when the rest of the state was going up in the thing, we had 56% people turned out for elections. In this election, you had 54 48.9, which is 55%. So we were right in the same percentage that we always have with this election. So, and when we had the 7 districts, we had the same kind of percentages going on. Nothing had changed from the time we went from the 7 districts to the 3 districts. Somewhere along the line, I think that you hit some of it on the head because of the transient, population that we have going on here. We find that there is a problem. You go to some of the bigger cities, you'll see that the bigger cities have problems with the fact that their turnout, isn't as high as it should be compared to the rest of the state. So, I don't have the total answers for you, but I don't think the addition of, and I got to tell you, with the new laws coming down, you start adding more people being able to access absentee ballots, then I can assure you that they're not going to be showing up at the polls. They're going to be doing the absentee balloting because they're going to find, once they find out that they're not shutting down the postal service on delivering absentee ballots and finding that their ballots are going to be just as secure as if they were at the polling place, they will be using more. And a good example of that was definitely in 2000, in the primary, when we had a 60% turnout of absentee ballots. The total number of people who checked in at the polling places that day for the primary, which is extremely low, was 675 people. The thing being is that the polling places, I don't think, are the problem. I think it's somehow, for some reason, it's the way that people either are moving around or their reluctance to come out, period. I don't understand it myself. I've watched it for all these years and I can't tell why it's happening. But this is, something that I've seen over the years. This is Bill Giesen.
Okay, Councilor Burke, this is President Dominguez. Are you all set?
I'll leave it at 2
yeah.
questions since we're to give other councilors time.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This is Councilor Burke.
Thank you, sir. All right, Councilor Dice, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is Councilor Dice, and I'm so glad that Registrar Giesen, that you brought up about how we're utilizing absentee ballots. From my understanding, how many absentee ballots was not counted because of no signature?
Well, the rejection, this is Bill Giesen, the rejection in this election was typical of all the other elections I went back and looked at. The elections usually run 1 to 2% of the people. There's a rejection. In 2020, there were 78 rejections
Okay.
of
Thank
the
you.
3,500.
Thank you, thank you, Registrar. So we had 70-something rejection. Were those people notified that their ballot didn't count?
No, the statutes don't allow for that. Bill Giesen.
So, okay, this is Councilor Dice. I guess what I'm concerned about, because I work with young people, and sometimes they don't look at everything, even though we teach them, you need to sign both ballots and stuff. What are we going to do to make sure that these ballots are counted? Because I have seen elections go with the difference of 3 ballots, and we had to do recounts. Just in the last 20 years, we had that quite a few times where we had ties, we had 3 points, 3 ballots difference. So I understand it's not in this statute, but is there anything we can do to let people know the importance? I just want to make sure that people votes are counted. What do you think we can do to make this a little bit different? And make sure the young people or old people, because it could have been a senior, not realizing, oh man, I got to sign both, the inside and the outside of the envelope.
This is Bill Giesen. Thinking back on this, I think in the haste of all the things going on, we're trying to get the people to vote by absentee ballot and do all these things that, were going on during this time period. Again, this kind of an exceptional time period makes it very difficult. But still 2% rejection is not good, in any way, shape, or form, no matter what. The more votes there are, the higher that number goes. I think the thing is that I have not seen is a focus on finding some groups that can do some education and stress what needs to be done for these absentee ballots when they're filling them out. I did not see anything in the last couple of elections, which shows people that if you're going to vote absentee, you have to sign the inner envelope. And you don't have to date it or anything else. It doesn't get rejected. The only thing that requires a rejection is if there's 2 ballots in one envelope, or if it was not signed at all. Any other thing, the ballot is accepted. That's what the rules are. That's what it calls for. So I think that somehow along some kind of groups and stuff of people have got to get an education program going to get this more stressed. And I think only because of what was going on in the haste of this election, it wasn't done this time. And I think that needs to be done. This is Bill Giese.
Okay. This is Councilor Dice. I do have another question, because just being mindful as we talk about how people are moving in and out, and we have college students that decide that they may not want to live here in this state. How often do you review people that may be registered in another town that should be taken off the roll? How often is that done in our city? And when was the last time it was done?
I'll let Rob answer a question for a change.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Rob Puro. So every year we go through a canvassing process. And so we're coming upon that process right now. And so we will, there's several ways statutorily you could do it. We opt to go through the Postal Service, and they provide us an understanding of address changes. So we do one for individuals who have moved within the city, and then individuals who've moved outside of the state. And so we send them letters to, it's a form letter to say, we confirm that you, through the Postal Service, that you moved to such and such address, and you sign it and send it back. And then that address will be changed in the voter system. In as well as if they've moved out of state, we do that as well. And that takes a good 3-month period. And that could be upwards of 300 to 400 inside, maybe over 400 or 500 outside of this, outside of the state. Now, what the state has changed this year is once there's, and I forget the timeline, it's directed by the state calendar. There's a period at which once we set that out, if they have not returned it, they'll make it active. Now the statewide system automatically does that. In order to be made active, if you show up at a polling location, you can make yourself active by filling out a voter registration card. When we first got to our jobs in 2015, I believe Shannon had talked to somebody at Conn College and gotten a list. So we were able to look at an understanding of who had kind of moved on from Conn College and kind of scrub some of those roles. But it is a process which can take a while, but one that we do every year. We also are looking at, obviously, people who may passed away, but we can't remove somebody unless we have an understanding that they have changed addresses. What we have from this election, though, is we have a lot of return postcards from the 1st District, which we're going to be actively getting into, and as well as envelopes that were returned for people who did not get their absentee ballots envelopes. So that is a very time-consuming process. And with, City Hall, that's, like I said, we had 4 elections so far this year. We had the primary in August, we had the recount in August, we had the November election, and then we just had an audit that we had to go up to Hartford to do, which we saved the city money by not having any employees, hiring any employees or bringing people into City Hall. But the process is every day we kind of are scrubbing our list for duplicates and for other information. Sorry to be lengthy.
Can I just clarify something, Ms. Diaz? This is Shannon Brennick.
Dice.
Rob said,
Dice.
Dice, sorry. Rob said that we got returned mail from absentee ballots, but it was actually when the Secretary of State sent an absentee ballot request to every registered voter. So that's what came back to us. And that's what we'll be going through and removing from the rolls, as well as the 7,000 postcards we sent out to the first district about the polling location change. A lot of those got returned. So we have all of that returned mail in addition to the canvas that we start every January.
Okay, this is Counselor Dice. So every January, so the last time it was done was last year, my understanding. Okay, just want to clarify that.
The canvas is required by statute, but every day, pretty much, we scrub our list. And I think your question is, and I didn't answer Counselor Burke's question, but they are in relationship to each other. So Counselor Burke's question as to, is it 55% turnout? Meaning we had 16,996 people registered on election day, and we had 9,341 people voted. And he's saying, that 55% seems low. Is there a grouping within that 16,996 that have kind of moved on that we haven't been able to track? And there's, we don't want to pull people off the rolls without a good understanding of it. And the amount of, this is something that I think back when I was on the council removed the secretary from that office. And I know Bill always did not like that. And that has helped the volume, that there's a lot of volume that comes in terms of what we sent out and what comes back. So our lists are changing every day. And even on election day, when people come in, they will change their address. We have received over 300 change of addresses that we have to go into the system. So it creates volume for I know you have to keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm sorry. As President Dominguez, I wanted to interrupt you. I didn't mean to, but because I only got like a couple minutes. And Councilor Dice, I appreciate your questions, because I did also, and Councilor Buck, I know you're on, but I'm gonna have to bypass you real quick, because I appreciate the time that the registrar's office and everyone that came in, but I want to make sure that I did also ask each of you, what are some things that we can do to improve our elections? That's something that I sent by email that was sent to you. And so far I'm noticing is education, right? Educate the people. So I don't know if in your budget, there's ways that, that you are supposed to go out and I don't know if it's maybe some workshops, something that you can educate people on, if that's allowed in the budget. The other thing is, I saw we talked about electronic book polls that we can get. Let me see. And so I don't know. I mean, what is it? I mean, you only got like a couple minutes, but what are some things that you thought about that can improve our elections in the future, just in case this pandemic doesn't go away by next year?
Well, this is Bill Giesing. You hit on the bigger points of some of that. The education part, a lot of times when we've done something with education, it's been because something new came up. Like when we had the new tabulators, I went out to the senior centers and some other things and did some training and show them. I even walked on the ballots and then submitted the ballots to show them it worked. Everything was fine. We've done these things before. We don't have the personnel to go out and do all the workshops that really should be done. We need the assistance of somebody that working with groups that know the groups that can give us a hand of going and do the training. We can give them and show them what needs to be done. We've done that with the ballot, with the registrations. We highlighted the areas and said, this has to be done on a registration in order for it to go through. So the education's really big. There are some things we've learned as we go every election, and including the buying different colored ballots and stuff like that for different situations. These are things, they're going to cost money, but they need to be done. The cost of doing business sometimes goes up.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things we go to the high school every year to register with the League of Women Voters, and we try to work with the League of Women Voters. One thing and Bill may have forgotten, we don't have the technology. We need new computers ourselves that have cameras, and tapping into Facebook, the city's Facebook account, would be helpful. Okay. I talked to IT about doing that because originally we didn't even have access to Facebook on our computers. I think we can generate having a Facebook account potentially, and utilizing maybe some with cameras on our computers, which we don't have in there. Yes. I mean, I'm using my own one to have it in this meeting. So yeah. I think some of the technology in maybe getting some computers that have that ability to utilize in our office, as well as having, because I think this virtual world and, getting out to some of the other clubs and community groups to advocate for how people can get registered. People can get registered online on the DMV a lot more than they used to in the past, where you would just get a card. But I think policy also drives, when you have an issue in the city, whether it be political, whether it be budgetary, people will come out and vote based upon policy. And I think that drives voter turnout as well.
Yep. So this is President Dominguez. Thank you so much, Registrar's Office. I don't mean to rush you guys, but we do have the council meeting coming up. But listen, so these things that we have talked about, the improvements we have, can you send that email? Can you send that in an email to our Assistant Administrator Jenny Starts? Just some of the ideas that we shared tonight to her, so we can look at it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we can do something with the upcoming budget that's coming. Maybe we can do something about that.
Pardon me, President Dominguez, this is Councilor Burke. May I make one suggestion?
Go ahead.
I see that we have a rather brief council agenda tonight, and I know not every councilor got a chance to have a question. I know I personally would support a recess of this meeting to come back to it for, at least for every councilor who didn't get to answer a question, to ask a question, if that's agreeable to you as the chair.
It's fine. The President Dominguez is fine with me. Is everybody else have any questions? All right. So, okay.
They're good. Okay.
So, Councilor Dice, are you good, or you want us to continue?
I would like to, if I'm not mistaken, Burke, you suggested to start the meeting, recess, and come back to
Okay,
this.
so you want to, all right.
So I would support that, because I would love to make sure that we have all our questions answered.
All right.
I'm sorry, President Dominguez, is there any other counselors that did not get a chance to speak that want to speak before we make a motion?
You know what? I
don't think there is.
My question was answered. Yeah.
Your question.
Okay.
Was
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn at this time,
Thank
President Dominguez.
okay then. All right.
Motion
Do I have a
to
second?
adjourn, motion to recess.
I will make a motion to adjourn at this time,
Yeah,
President.
that was a question. That's the
Council-
motion.
Councilor Burke,
I'll
second.
the motion to adjourn.
Okay, it's been seconded by Councilor Burke, the motion to adjourn. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right, this meeting has been adjourned. Again, thank you again, Registrar's Office, Bill Giesing, Rob Perro, and Shannon. Thank you so much, guys. All right, we'll be in touch,
Thank
okay?
you. Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Take care. All right. Thank you. So at this time, we're just gonna go right into the council meeting, okay? Let me just have City Clerk Ayala do the roll call for us, please.
President Dominguez,
Present.
President Pro Temp Natartes,
Present.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Present.
Councilor Dice,
Present.
Councilor Goodwin, Councilor Sade,
Here.
Councilor Burke,
Present.
6 present.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just read the logistics and we'll get started, okay? Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org/live-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form on the city website at least 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start time of the meeting. Please include your address in your written public comment submission. Again, good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is the New London City Council meeting. Today, January 4th, 2021 at 7:04 p.m. With that said, I would just want to welcome everyone that's here, all the councilors, the mayor, Director Sear, and every other department head, and especially our audience and residents that are watching this meeting this evening. Okay, with that said, I'm going to ask Councilor Dice, who will be leading us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
This is Counselor Dice. Would like for everybody to take a moment of silence for all the families that's affected and lives that was lost due to COVID-19. Lord, we give you praise for all that you have done. And I just want to take a moment, Lord, just to say, please bless each one of these counselors and our community people and our citizens, that they feel comfortable to share the needs, but also, Lord, to edify all the wonderful blessings that you have done for us. I thank you for the people in our community who help show ways of showing gratitude to you through Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, giving thanks to Mother Earth, Three Kings Day. Lord, I thank you for everyone who went out to make sure that our community will be uplifted in so many ways. I thank you for blessing this council meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
If everybody could please stand, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And after I say it in English, it will be done in Spanish. Do you believe I'm drawing a blank right now.
I pledge allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance
welcome.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América, a la república que representa una nación ante Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Gracias.
De nada, de nada. You're more than welcome. All right, thank you. Good job. Thank you, Councilor Dice. All right, with that said, we'll go right into no public hearings, 3.0. 4.0, minutes of the previous meetings. I need a motion.
So moved.
Councilor Burke, move to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 1st, 2020.
Counselor Sadi, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries. All right, let's continue with the next one. I need a motion for the other meeting minutes.
This is Councilor Burke, move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 21st, 2020.
This is Counselor Sadi. I'll be glad to second that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, the minutes have been approved for both the special meeting and the regular meeting. Thank you. At this time, we are going to go into public comment. Just a reminder, public comment again, you get to speak. Make sure that when you address the council, you state your name and also the address for the record, and then you'll be allotted 3 minutes to speak. All right, we have one person so far, and that is our beloved Karen Paul. Karen Paul.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I just want to wish you, well, a couple of things. But first of all, let me wish you all a happy and healthy new year and a prosperous new year. Secondly, I want to share with you how proud and pleased I am with all of the people and the organizations that are helping distribute food to the people that are having problems eating. Thirdly, somebody asked me today, what's going on with the Martin Center? And I went, you know what? I haven't inquired about that lately. So if any of you know, or if, I should probably contact Felix, but it would be nice to have an update on what's going on with the Martin Center. And following that, please remember all the seniors in the city. The seniors have been shut out of the senior center. There's very little activities or anything for the seniors to do. They're really scrambling. So please remember them. And if you know a senior and you know their phone number, or they're your neighbor, but most of all, if you know their phone number, give them a call and ask them how they're doing. And lastly, last council meeting, I spoke about the sidewalks and the snow that had built up on the corners, especially downtown. So tonight, even though there's no snow on the sidewalks right now, or on most of the sidewalks, but the next time we have a snowstorm, I would like to invite each and every one of you counselors and the mayor and maybe even the mayor's staff to come join me and walk down State Street to see how difficult it is to get across the street at the corner. And that's all I have to do. Again, happy, healthy New Year. And oh yes, it's Karen Paul, 281 State Street. Thank you.
This is President Dominguez. Thank you, Karen Paul, and Happy New Year to you too also.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other, at this time, I know there's no one else that's going to be speaking at this time. Let's go over to no petitions. There's none, and now response to public comment. Any counselor wants to respond to public comment at this time? Okay, let's go with Councilor Sadi.
Thank you. This is Councilor Sadi. Karen Paul, thank you for coming out. Just a reminder, the incident that we had on December 17th was, larger than usual. And with any snowfall such as that, it does definitely take longer to clean up. And I think our Public Works did a wonderful job with what they had. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for coming out. Happy New Year to you.
All right, Councilor Dice. This is President Dominguez. Go ahead.
This is Councilor Dice speaking, and first of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year's to you, Ms. Paul. It's important to encourage each other, and Councilor Sadi, you hit it right on the head. They did explain that they were training also some of the new employees, and they were learning, and it was extreme large snowfall. So I am very thankful that we have people out here doing the best they can, and I just like to make sure that we always encourage each other as we go forward into 2021. This is Councilor Dice. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. Councilor Booker.
Yes, thank you, President Dominguez.
You're welcome.
Just want to say thank you, Karen Paul, for coming out, and also Happy New Year to you and your family, and also Happy New Year to everyone else in the call as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker. Seeing no other councilor that wishes to respond to public comment, we will continue to the next in line, reports and communications. Any other councilors have any questions for the Director of Law, Attorney Londrigan? Good evening. Good evening. Councilor Sadi, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Go ahead.
Through you to Councilor Londrigan, in reference to under the general side, cell tower, emails read 25 Lower Boulevard, new tower proposal.
Yeah, I believe we might have, I'm sorry, Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan for the record. I think we might have touched on this in one of my past reports. The city's been approached by AT&T about wanting to expand the tower that's down at the South Fire Station. And presently there is a tower down there that is owned by, I believe, T-Mobile. So we obviously don't want to disrupt our current tower and our current tenants. And so we're just working with AT&T to see if there's some way for the tower to be expanded, for AT&T to join as a tenant on the tower, obviously, and also to increase revenue and hopefully service in the south end of the city.
So would the procedure be that we would then have to contact anybody that would be affected by that, i.e. neighbors in the area?
We would not. It would actually go through the Connecticut Siting Council, which has authority over cell towers. I believe neighbors within a certain radius would get notice from the Connecticut Siting Council. But it is not anything that the city needs to do extraordinary were we to consider AT&T's proposal.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Any other councilor? Okay, Councilor Burke, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is Councilor Burke. Attorney Londrigan, on the litigation side, number 3, state peer, specifically in the last part of the sentence where it says reviewed regulations for intervention into the DEEP hearing. What does that mean, regulations for intervention? Does that mean like the city taking a stance and trying to influence the DEEP hearing?
This is Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan. Not necessarily trying to influence, but the process presently is going to be an administrative hearing before the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Not to bore you with all the legal logistics of it, but if there's a party that is going to be impacted more so than just impacts to the public at large, those persons and entities can petition to become an intervener in the public hearing, whereby you get a little more extra attention, if you will, as far as being able to present arguments, to present testimony, and you have a little bit more of a vested right were an appeal from any decision be attempted. So we were basically investigating and reviewing DEEP's regulations to see what is that process and procedure were we to make the decision to intervene in the public hearing. The public hearing has not yet been scheduled. There's going to be a hearing or a meeting, I should say, status conference the end of this month, at which time DEEP will set it down for a public hearing. And then 5 days before that public hearing date is the deadline for a party to decide if they want to intervene or not. So I'm sure that was more information than your original question, so I apologize for going down that rabbit hole, but hopefully that answers your question.
It does, and it's personally interesting to me, so thank you very much. Director, no further questions.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Any other councilor? Okay, seeing none. All right, she'll continue to the next item on the agenda. Thank you again, Director of Law, Tony Londrigan, for your time.
You're welcome.
Right, so at this time, let's move on to council committee reports. This evening, we had a finance committee meeting regarding just the registrar's office, debriefing about the prior election, and also just sharing what are some things that can be done to improve our future elections. So hopefully that'll be coming through soon. All right, with that said, we'll move on to the mayor's office communications at this time. So if you all leave, Mayor Passero, go ahead, sir.
Good evening, President Dominguez. This is Mayor Passero. Good evening, members of council, staff, and residents that are in the meeting. Today we had a great event up at the Guard Arts. It was just great to be back in that beautiful venue. Again, Senator Blumenthal came to town. He wanted to announce it's called Save Our Stages, which is funding that was part of the latest pandemic relief bill, federal bill that passed Congress. And so that's a great economic lifeline to institutions like the Guard throughout the country and in Connecticut. And we all know what what the Guard means to the city of New London. So this is on the heels of the announcement last week that the state was distributing $9 million in state grants to our cultural institutions, including the Guard. And just here in Connecticut, from that round of state funding, the Eastern Connecticut Symphony received $57,000, Flock Theater received $60,000, and Guard Arts received $183,000, Hygienic $14,000, Thames Valley Music School $11,000, and Writer's Block $11,000. So the state's distribution of $9 million in CARES Act funding for the arts benefited New London greatly, and we appreciate that because our arts and our cultural sector of our economy is very important to New London. It's important for our economy and our identity. And I think it's important that they recognize that some of this money has to go to, to our culture and to feed our spirit, as well as to some of the other human needs that we're trying to meet in the face of this pandemic. Speaking of which, we continue to have everybody got a little bit of a break over the holiday, which was nice because staff is working very hard. But we resumed this week with our daily staff calls. Jeannie Milstein is still working really hard to coordinate all of the social service agencies and the relief that we're providing there, whether it's, to keep people housed, to prevent, outbreaks in our congregate housing situation, and to coordinate food distribution. Our emergency services are working very hard, coordinating with Ledgelight Health District and L&M Hospital to continue with our testing efforts. And then there's just a lot of work going into trying to coordinate this effort to get people vaccinated, which unfortunately we're at the bottom here of that very unorganized effort starting at the federal government, unfortunately. But we are getting our frontline employees, albeit frustratingly slowly, vaccinated. And then we'll move on to other segments of the community. And then our economic development efforts. There was a new round of PPP funding for our small businesses. So our economic development team is working hard to make sure that our businesses are coordinating with the banks to access that money. We're also still redistributing our last CDBG funding. Unfortunately, the latest $908 million federal pandemic relief funding, which just passed, does not include another round of CDBG or any kind of local or state government funding. However, our schools will be getting funding through the Title I program. So that's fantastic for us and takes some pressure off of the city's finances. And also, in the omnibus budget bill that passed at the same time, just recently in the last few days, includes $5 million for the Coast Guard Museum, in case you didn't see that. So that's a great boost for that project. The question, by the way, the question on the Martin Center, the stage we're at the Martin Center, the project is proceeding, though you don't see any you won't notice things right away, but the building is just about completed being cleaned out. So just numerous dumpsters after dumpsters have been hauled away. The drawings, the architectural drawings, design development has been completed. So they've determined the unit counts and the mixes of the size of the units. They're moving forward on the HVAC system right now and getting new meters in place because if you recall, they have to separate the Martin Center building from the wing that the city leases for the senior center. So that project's exciting. It's moving forward. It's one of the projects that'll be fully under construction. One of the projects that'll be fully under construction in 2021 throughout this year. Finally, I'm going to cut it short tonight. CDBG, the CDBG round is upon us. That's handled really well and competently by Tom Bombria. But just as a reminder for organizations that apply for CDBG funding, this is the typical annual round of CDBG funding grants, which council approves as the final step in the budget adoption process. We're at the beginning of it. Applications are due on January 8th. So that date is upon us. So let's get that word out to all the organizations that apply. You'll be getting the recommendations mid-February, so in about another 6 weeks from the Citizens Advisory Committee. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Any councilors? Any questions for the mayor? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Booker.
Yeah, thank you, President Dominguez. I have two questions. What changes are you looking forward to seeing in New London in 2021? And you just mentioned the Martin Center as a larger improvement in project. What larger improvement or projects can the residents expect in 2021 in London?
Well, I mean, I don't think this isn't going to shock you.
No.
I'm hoping in 2021 that we can all get together again.
Yes.
It was,
right.
You know, it was sort of an emotional experience to go to the Gard Art Center today, because it's been a long 8 or 9 months without having to go there. And we should be getting ready to. I typically get my kids usually give me a season pass to the Winter Cinema Series. And you get to go to like 4 or 5 movies a week for like 6 weeks. And the movies are great. And I would never see them otherwise. It's like a social event as much as going to see, you see movies you would never go to see, but you got a season pass and you get, Thursday night at the Gard, Friday night at the Gard, Saturday afternoon for the matinee, Saturday night, Sunday night. I mean, you could wear yourself out in a 6-week period. But the greatest thing about it is going to this venue with, 800 of your friends, 900 of your friends. I mean, who gets to do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm hoping we can get back to that. Memories come up on Facebook, how that happens. And, a year ago, you were listening to a great band at Daddy Jack's or at the Social, or you're out to dinner at Deb's, or, the Hygienic Art Show. We've lost so much of our community lives. I really hope we get that back.
Me too.
The second question was that development. What other developments do we got, Kevin? That's exciting. We just have so many great projects on the burner. If you heard the project up on Bayonet Street, it's affordable. There's some market rates, mostly affordable. There's some supportive units, which we really need. That project, it's an ECHO project. It got funding in the last State Bond Commission. So the first phase of that will be able to move forward this year. That's exciting. The Martin Center, as you heard, is exciting. We have a couple of opportunity zone projects, which this is great because New London has opportunity zone projects. That's investment. We have one at 38 Green Street, which should be, completed this year. Those are going to be micro lofts. That's really exciting for our city. That developer is looking for another building. because he's looking ahead to his next project. And the project on Howard Street, 200 units, that's an opportunity zone project. You know, we're hoping and working on a number of projects to get some of these older structures in the downtown district redeveloped. These buildings, it's not just an empty storefront problem. I mean, we believe we've got businesses. What we don't have is we don't have spaces that are habitable. The buildings need to be redone. You know, I mean, all the mechanicals in these buildings are shot. The buildings are shot. They have to be done. If you know, a perfect example are some of the buildings that Yehuda Amor has done, or Quinn and Harry buildings, a perfect example. I mean, essentially these buildings they're new buildings that have been built inside the old shells and preserving the historic facades. But inside, once you walk in, it's a beautiful new building. Most of our stock downtown needs that kind of work. It needs that kind of investment. These projects require $5-6 million worth of investment to get done. So I hope that you know, the next thing that we're all going to be facing, and it's really exciting, is probably the greatest investment that we're going to make in ourselves really in my lifetime living here, and that's going to be the community center. We're looking at deciding on whether to make a major investment in ourselves, in our community, in our people, in our health, and in giving us a place that we all will congregate around and enjoy as a community. So that project's moving forward. We already made the first investment. We have a great team working for us, and we, as a city, well, first is the administration. We're struggling with it now. We'll be bringing it to you, you know, very shortly in days or weeks. And then the council's going to have to decide, and then the community is going to have to decide, are we going to invest in ourselves? So that's important. And then, you know, finally, I think we are, you know, the police, the Public Safety Policy Review Committee has been working really hard. So those discussions are coming, and we need to move forward, you know, on all of our equity and inclusion issues in the city. We adopted the resolution, but we're committed, my administration, to a person is committed to lead the way in the state of Connecticut, to have New London lead the way on issues of equity and justice in our city, in every aspect of our city. So so I'm hoping that 2021 you know, sees the city take a lead role in that effort as well. So there's really a lot of exciting things, a lot of hard work. I like hard work. I'm happier the harder I work. So I'm looking forward to it. And I thank you for the question, Councilor Booker.
Thank you, Mayor Passero.
All right, President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Dice, I saw your hand.
Yes, Councilor Dice, and Mayor, I just want to extend blessings to you as you celebrate your birthday tomorrow.
Oh, blowing the whistle on.
Happy birthday.
And that's Councilor Dice speaking, that's all.
All right.
Wow.
That was good. That was good.
Yep. Now, as Karen Paul said, you'll all be checking on me now. Remember,
That's right. We got to check up on
pick up the phone and call the senior citizen now and then, make sure I'm getting along all right.
All right, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Mayor Passero, for your leadership, and of course, you know, all the hard work and even your staff. So with that said, I don't think any other councilor has. I don't see any hands, so we'll continue on to the next, which is the consent agenda. Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. The consent agenda proposals set forth at the regular meeting of January 4th, 2021 are either 1, accepted for the record, 2, referred to committee name, 3, waived from committee to be acted upon as proposed, or 4, consented to as proposed.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
Yes, please. Someone, please.
Councilor Dice, second that.
Councilor Booker. Oh, Councilor. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Dice, for seconding it. All right. I'm gonna start calling you guys out. Somebody make the second. Right. So thank you, Councilor Dice. All right. I'm gonna read these. Okay. So again, if you're gonna pull it, all right, make sure you say so. All right. Right now we have. Hold on, guys. Let me get my sheets here together. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, 7.0 unfinished business, 7.1 A, B, C, 7.2, 8.0, new business, 8.1 A, B, C, 8.2.
Paul,
Okay, was that Asadi? Councilor Asadi?
Council Booker,
Oh, Councilor Booker. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Booker. All right, now 8.3. 9.0, no appointments, no executive session, and then 9.0. All right, let's have President Pro Temp.
This is President Pro Temp Natalis. All items having the unanimous support of the City Council are hereby adopted with a single roll call vote. The motions are seconded, the chair calls the roll, and the chair declares the motions to be unanimously voted and adopted. Can I get a second?
second.
Councilor Dice second.
All right, Councilor Dice, President Dominguez here, Councilor Dice
Gotta keep.
with the second. She's 2 in a row. All right, here we go. Let's go. City Clerk Ayala, please. Roll call vote.
President Pro Temp Natartes,
Yes.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin, Councilor Sadi,
Yes.
Yeah, John, Councilor Sadi, you're muted.
Council Sadi is yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Dice?
I said Councilor Dice. I think you said yes already. No?
No, you
I-
understand?
Yes, but no, you didn't say my name, but
No, no.
No,
it's all good.
Councilor
Thank you.
Dice.
Yes.
6 yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, City Clerk Ayala. All right, so let's move on. Just to make sure the record, Councilor Goodwin is absent today. All right, just so you know, City
Okay.
Clerk Ayala. Okay. All right, so
President Dominguez?
yes,
Um,
I know there was a, yeah, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
this is
Mayor.
the mayor, and sorry to interrupt your meeting, but a point of personal privilege. I meant to call you
Oh.
today. I believe you're going to 8.2 next. I wanted to, before you got the motion on the floor. The administration would request, and we can explain after, you can ask Mr. McBride after Councilor Booker puts the motion on the floor, but we've had a change in that item just recently today, and we're going to request that it be tabled.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right, no problem. So I am going to, well, go ahead. You're gonna move it to Cam,
Yeah.
Councilor Booker, because you're the only one that called anything out today to pull. And you picked the right one, sir. You picked the right one.
All right, move the Cam.
Can I have a second? Yep. Okay, it's been seconded.
Yeah.
Right.
City Council approves the request of the directors of the Public Works and Finance to enter into a contract with Direct Energy to provide electrical supply at the rate of 0.07193 for the period December 2022 to December 2023, and authorizes the mayor to sign the agreement and any other documents necessary and incidental to effectuating said agreement.
Okay, President Dominguez, so Councilor Booker, you're gonna table it. Motion to table it.
Motion to table.
Okay.
Second by Councilor Sadi.
All right, seconded by Councilor Sadi. All right.
I know there's no discussion.
No
but would the mayor
discussion,
like-
sir. Yep.
Would the
Th-
mayor
there's
like
no-
a table to a specific date?
Oh, yes.
No.
Would that be for the following, okay, Director Seer? Could you speak on it?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
It would be unspecified at this point.
Okay.
We're not sure at what
Okay.
point it would be in the city's best interest to bring that up again.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Director Seer. This is President Lee speaking. Is that fine, Director McBride? Just to double check again? Okay, sir. Thank you. All right. So we have a second. All right. Let's vote on it to table it to an unspecified time in the future sometime. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and those opposed say nay. Okay, so it has been tabled. All right, Councilor Sadi.
Like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Booker. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those
Aye.
opposed say nay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening. Thank you so much,
Happy New Year.
and Happy New Year to
Year.
everyone.
Years.
Go.
All right.